Alrighty, here we go. So this is where I'm headed to, and let's take a moment here. I'm going to clean house real quick. We'll clear all that, and let's zoom in on the avalanche checklist. Alrighty. So I thought I'd do this in video format so you could kind of hear my voice as I'm going through and having a look at these things. So at any rate, we've had this checklist out. Don's put a ton of work into it over time, and let's have a peek at what some suggestions just from my point of view are now that I've seen it for a few years. I like the overall layout. It's great. Checklist, super simple. The one thing I'm seeing is there's a lot of words on the page, and I think it's a little bit intimidating for a beginner. And I kind of see this as something that's targeted towards, say, a level 1 type user. Certainly a level 2 user could fall back to it. But I kind of was thinking, now maybe we might want to consider some things being more simple. At any rate, I'll just go from top to bottom and give you an idea of what I'm thinking or what I'm seeing, and you can take all this with a grain of salt. I'm sort of brainstorming as I'm moving along here anyways, so this is going to be kind of as I go. So first thing I was just going to throw in right here, we probably ought to put down forecasted avalanche problems since we're in the pre-trip planning stage. Just that way we know that it's only a forecast and there may be other things that come about. I like this terrain run list thing a ton. It's difficult to write things in, so maybe if you took and put a box in here like this, run it up like so, and then you could title it terrain run list up here, and then we'll cut it into, say, 3 pieces, one being closed, one being open, one being standby, just some type of thing like that, so that somebody writing, because your writing's going to be fairly big compared to the type, would fit in there, and that might just make it feel a little bit more usable for someone to actually get out in the morning as opposed to just reading it. I'm just throwing out ideas once again. Let's move down a little bit. This next section is kind of the meat and potatoes of the whole list, and so it's something that I think worth looking at a little bit. See if I can. There we go. On-tour observations, and I thought a lot about this one here. First off, as far as a usability thing goes, given that the terrain assessment refers back, or go no go refers back to these observations, that maybe making it slightly more accessible to a pencil might help some people. It's not going to help everybody, but right now it's difficult to get into this, and we've got a lot of space on the page. This zone out in here, that area has a lot that we could write in. So coming once again top down, let's say presence of yellow and red flags, beginning level. How about just, instead of having them make a decision between yellow and red, how about we just say signs of instability. Put that up there, and let's have it be a positive negative on-off type switch. So wow, okay, observed recent avalanches, and let's say I've observed collapsing. Okay, those are just check marks. Boom, either there or they're not. This bullseye clue, I know persistent weak layer kind of falls in there, but if we come down here, poor structure and persistent weak layers, maybe we move that piece down in here as a subset of poor structure, so it comes out. This could be PWLs observed, or upside down. That's up SD. The pen here isn't working super good today. So that structural concern, if it's a PWL, well, if you observe that, it gets a check right off the bat. And what I'm kind of considering here is that, yeah, we gauge these as, bullseye clues, weather, stability tests, which would be class 1, class 3, and class 2 data from an old school point of view, with this being the most important and the weather kind of in a way being relegated to the third realm, and then snow pit data being somewhere in the middle. That tends towards this yellow flag potential type things. But how about we mess around with the idea of, let's say we weight them all the same, and we take all of these things and just get rid of them, and then take the font and move it up a couple bits so that you can easily get a check mark in these, and maybe leave a little area over here that says notes, just a spot that somebody can write a few things in if they observe something. And at that point, what they can do is, throughout the course of the day, they can talk about, okay, what this is. So if I saw collapsing, maybe somebody might want to write down at 7,800 feet, right? And then when they get down later, they might say go or no go. Well, it was collapsing at 7,800, but I'm at 10,200. Maybe there's some reason for the snowpack to be different. Fair enough, but also remember, we're talking about beginners, and so that probably won't be that sophisticated of a decision-making process. But if we open the door to make it scalable that way, I think that's a good idea. New snow and rain, maybe a little comma here with the, contributing. Wind contributing, temperature rising, contributing to instability, is what I'm thinking. This is going to open up a can of worms to say this, but I would scratch low strength off of here for a level 1 user. Making a strength decision when you say have propagation potential. I mean, ECT 28, ECT 7. For the beginner, that doesn't matter. It's propagation's propagation. For a more advanced user, like we sometimes say, the idea is maybe learning how to, quote-unquote, break rules, but maybe a more sophisticated look at this. But I think even the advanced user has trouble interpreting this strength question right here. So for this particular checklist, maybe propagation potential and a line that says ECTP with a line, question mark, or whatever, so they can write down their number. And then if they actually are been around long enough to do that test, been through enough classes to do that test, or at least writing the number down tells them something about their history. And then with this whole area can kind of open up and maybe become a little more field usable. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm taking out a lot of writing, taking out these big bars, and kind of setting them up to utilize all of this space, and then also kind of changing the thought process a little bit as well. So yeah, be that what it may. Next up, a pan down here. So they've gone through their whole day. This next box is awesome. It's very simple. What's my terrain assessment? Simple, challenging, complex. That's up for the user to figure out and maybe make some assertion between what they've observed, what they suspected was happening, and then what they're getting ready to go and do. And then when we come down here a little bit further, we've gone through all of our questions about where our terrain is, and then we get into this no-go section. This thing really kind of lends itself to a flowchart more of a look than it does a checklist look, if that makes sense. And this is, once again, just my mind thinking about it. So if I come in here and I look at the two ultimate answers, I have yes, which is considered simpler terrain. and I have a no button. No. And so if I go through this ignoring yellow flags, there's a box, there's a yes, there's a no, and then maybe there's a direction down to here, no, hops over here. And obviously it would be more simple than what I'm drawing. I'm just kind of putting this out as I move along. Do I have the necessary experience? So this is the experience box. Then it has a no, it has a yes, and then ultimately these all have different lines that lead you to a yes or no decision, if that makes any sense. Because right now we're using no as a continue with the checklist, and the no in this case may be different terrain. So different or no Abby terrain. Pardon the sloppiness here. Once again, the pen's not working super good today. And then naturally, the after action report, you go through all of these questions as a matter of course. And that, I think, is going to help people as far as, down the road. And we've already talked about all of that sort of thing. So, looking back from the big picture here now, if you look at the thing, there's this opening for more and different sorts of looks throughout the page. Remember I said that the text to me kind of is intimidating, and that's as a user that has been around a lot of this stuff. And certainly if you look at my field books, they're quite text intensive. But if we start putting, or if you start putting graphics in here, so here's my pre-trip box that I can write things in, and then this area here just opens up and becomes a little more graphical, and these are your on-tour observations. And then finally you have a question, and then at the end you have the usual, okay, what are we going to do? And that's sort of a simplified flow chart. But ultimately this thing is the new Alp Truth, right? I mean, it's not at all meant to be, Alp Truth was never a decision-making tool for sure, but this thing has some teeth now, and hopefully if we start using it, Alp Truth is your backup test, but this is your flow chart for how you make decisions. So anyways, hopefully that's helpful. I know it's kind of late getting up to ISSW, but I just want to get these thoughts out, and hopefully this is a good format for it. Thanks for your time, and I'll talk to you guys.